Hey guys, welcome to the channel. No, you're not going crazy. What you can see right now on the screen is my video that I put up last night about midnight about this Mark IV tank. And I'm doing this just to prove that I'm not trying to rip you guys off and that I am actually genuinely starting to build today. So if I zoom in here and I scroll down, then you'll see that basically, here we go, 9 hours ago, Norman J put a post up there, and if I go view reply, here we go, there's me, I replied 9 hours ago. So here we are without any break. I'm going to move across here to the kit, and you can see there's the box front, there sat on the side, here's the empty box, and here are all the sprues, all still bagged up. There's the figure, the side panels, bits and pieces, wheels, sprockets and chain, everything, more hull parts, all still bagged up, all still sealed, and then we've got the dreaded tracks. Yep, so there we go, and there's the instructions like I showed you last night. So I just wanted to put this together just to prove to you that I'm not actually trying to pull a fast one, and I didn't start this build a few weeks ago or something. I really am going to try and do this in a month. So wish me luck, and here we go. Hello guys, what I'm going to do for the next few minutes is basically for beginners that might be coming and looking on here on how I build a model tank or whatever I'm going to call the video, I don't know. For those of you that are experienced modelers or just came on to see the build of the tank and you already know about tools and everything, just need to give you a warning, the rest of this video is all about the tools, the glues, the sanders and all that I use. So if you don't want to see that, switch off now, because that's all it is. Right, now before we get on with the build, bearing in mind that this is being put up for somebody who's requested and they've asked me to build a kit right from start to finish, and we all know now who that is. So here you go, Gary. I hope you enjoy it. But I want to make this kind of a video for people that want to know basically how to build a model out of the box and get a result at the end. And I'm not going to tell you that you need this tool, that tool, this paint, that paint, this glue, this. I'm going to show you what I use, and then you can make your choice from there, and I'll give you the pros and cons from my point of view. I'm no expert. Please don't take anything I say as set in stone or as read. I've been building models now for 49 years, and I started, I think I probably just twisted the parts off the sprue and glued them together with air fixed tube cement, I don't know. I do remember the first time my mother ever allowed me to use paint. We went out and I was building a 1/12 scale Marlboro McLaren from Tamiya that had been bought for me as a birthday present, and she allowed me to have a silver and a black, I think, and a red as well. And I opened the silver paint, and before I got a brush anywhere near it, I spilt the whole thing over her brand new crimson carpet. She still reminds me about that to this day. And yeah, we didn't have a lot of money when I was a youngster, and she was not best pleased. So I've never spilt a pot of paint since. So maybe that's why. Maybe she drove it into me, who knows. But anyway, let's start looking at basic tools. The first thing you're going to need is a knife. Now, there's two main styles you can go for. There's the round style like this, which is commonly known as the X-Acto knife. But I mean, there's a million different patterns that people have ripped them off. They have their advantages and they have their downsides. Downside is if you've got a small blade to keep rolling away, which is a downside. They are easy to handle, but sometimes they will twist and turn in your hand if you're doing something heavy with them. So then you use something like this, which is a much heavier knife, which uses a bigger blade, and you've got the holding handle on there. The big advantage with them is there's millions of accessories out there that go into these X-Acto blades. Like this one here, this is from RB Models. This is actually a super glue applicator. So you just pick up your blade, you slot that in there like that, and there you go. And another one I always use is, you may have seen in other videos, is you buy these on a little PE fret, and that's a set of blades, little saw blades that also go into the same sort of X-Acto knife. This is an XL. So yeah, that's those there. I tend to prefer the scalpel type, like these. They sit flat on the bench. They're, if you like me, biting nails are sometimes a little hard to pick up. They're lovely to hold. They won't ever, you've got full control because they won't roll around in your hands. They won't roll away. Blades are very easily available and fairly cheap. This is the number, what's the handle? I can't remember the numbers now. They give the handles numbers. This is a number, that's right, this is a number 3 and this is a number 4. And as you can see, the blades are of different sizes. I use this pretty much for photo etch because a curved blade is always good, but more on that later. And I use a 10A for pretty much everything else. Some people prefer an 11, which is the same sort of thing but a lot longer and slimmer. So yeah, that's what I use. And recently I got a load of stuff off a guy in work, and he's Polish and brought all this stuff over from Poland and packed it in. He gave me all this stuff, and I bought it off him. And this, I've never seen anything like this before. This is an Alpha knife. You can see Alpha written on the side there. And yeah, really impressive little knife. The only thing I do find is it tends to, when you're trying to cut straight lines, it tends to wander. But it's a lovely little thing, and I use it, as you know, for my pointer when I'm doing reviews. So now we've looked at knives, look at sprue cutters. There are lots of cheap ones about. These here in particular are available on Amazon fairly cheap. They've got no make on them whatsoever, and they're actually not so bad. So if you're on a budget, if you see these ones with the yellow handle, they're actually not too bad. They're better than some of the ones which cost 3 or 4 times as much. These here, I'm not a big fan. They tend to, what you need to be careful of with the cheaper sprue cutters is when you go up close to parts and cut them off the sprue, they tend to rip a chunk of the part away, because rather than sort of cutting it, they're actually extruding it. Because of the angle of the blade, they're kind of pulling the plastic apart, so they'll tend to pull a big chunk. So you've got to cut away from the part and then clean up the lead afterwards. So you've got those there, and those there, which are all pretty much the same. These are, I think these are Zuron. A lot of people swear by these. I personally don't like them. So I thought I'd try these, the Citadels. Now you can see I've got a rubber band on there, and the reason is without it, this is what happens. So every time you go to pick them up, you have to kind of use 2 hands to pick them up. And then they've also got the same problem, that the ends aren't very hard and they tend to rip chunks of plastic out as well. They do come in a very lovely box, and they got this nice aluminium, which I don't think is anodized, I think it's painted. So yeah, they're presented well. As far as actual use goes, nah, there's better out there. By far the best sprue cutters I've ever come across. I know you've got the God hands and stuff which cost a fortune. These, the Tamiya fine point cutters. Make sure you get the right ones. There's a few different ones, but these I've had for probably, I don't know, 8 months to a year. And if I can get the camera to focus, look at that. I don't use them for anything other than plastic, and I do a lot of modelling, as you know, and I tend to try and just use them for cutting parts off the sprue. If I need to actually cut up some sprues to fit in the bin, or I want to use make some sprue glue, I use these. The rest I wouldn't really give you 2pence for. And then some people will tell you these Zuron, the blue handle ones, these are like a scissor action cutter, and they'll tell you these are really good for photo etch. Nah. The trouble is with photo etch frets, you've got so much on there. As you can see, the ends are quite big, and you can't really get in there. They're good for cutting up strip. That's about it, really. Tweezers. Your basic. Try and get hold of some basic standard tweezers like this, with curved ends and straight ends. Try and get something with a very fine point, and with these you can kind of bend them. You can bend the points. So the trouble is sometimes they come and the ends are very much like this, and that's a problem because the parts will flick out. So try and bend them so that the ends are kind of flat. That's what I do anyway. And then you can hold stuff sort of 3 or 4 mil up the shank, and then it won't fly off. And the knees are great for putting parts into detailed little places like an undercarriage bays or something, because you can get in there with them. These are a must-have, I think, for painting smaller parts. These are you get these in Hobbycraft. These are the ones that work the other way around. You squeeze them to open them and then they pinch closed. They're great for holding together smaller assemblies like a you know, like a fuel tank or an air tank or something on a 35th scale truck. They're great for clamping while the glue dries, but they're also good for holding stuff while you're painting. As you can see, mine are covered in paint. And a little tip that I've done here, I've got a pair of the ordinary crank-ended pointed tweezers, and I've put some vinyl tubing from a Tamiya motorbike kit over the ends, and that's really good for holding small parts that are maybe painted you don't want to damage. So yeah, that's really good, and also good for putting vinyl tube on, because as you know, if you put the sharp metal ends on the vinyl tube, you'll tend to scratch it. So yeah, that's pretty good for that. Sanding sticks and files. You can get these files, I've got loads of them here. Really handy little tools. You can buy them in cheap sets. There are some diamond files going about with yellow handles in a blue pack, and you find them in a lot of pound shops. They're really good. The only trouble is they're a bit coarse when they're new. You need to wear them in a bit and get them fine down. A lot of people say you need files for photo etch. I tend to use sanding sticks, to be honest. I tend to use Flory sanding sticks. I love them. You'll see in my previous videos I kind of don't use much else really, and like you get this one like here, which is like a 1200 on one side and a 240 on the other, and it's a sponge, so it's quite good for general use. Then you've got something here which is slightly coarser. They've got the fine ones, which are the green ones. They also do a white one which is quite coarse. I think I've got a white one here. Here's a white used one, and that's very coarse. And then they've got this polishing sponge, which is like a version of this one but just slimmer. So it's like a 1200 on one side and a 240 on the other. And the beauty of these is, I could just show you on here, they conform beautifully. So if you're sanding something down, they're good for removing you know, mold joint, you know, the mold seam on round parts. So they're good for that. I also swear by these. You get these in your nail care department in your supermarket. Swear by these. They are thin, slightly flexible, but very hard. The problem is with sponges, you start sanding away, and if you push a bit too hard, you will actually, if you can imagine, if you had a lump, like a 3mm diameter lump on the surface, and you started sanding away with this, you'd kind of sand away the lump, but you'd also be sanding around the lump as well. So you just end up with a shallower, a slightly less tall lump, but you sanded away around it. So you end up with a kind of mound rather than a lump. Whereas with this, because it's hard, it'll only take away the lump. I'll show you while I'm going through the build the difference with all these. But these are actually imperative if you don't want to touch any of the surrounding area and you just want to sand something flat like a sprue nib or something. So that's the sanding sticks taken care of. Drills, I would suggest everyone go and buy one of these from your local hobby shop. It's a pin vise. You've got all the different sizes. You get 2 different collets with 4 different size ends for your drills. So you've got one in the handle and obviously one at the other end with the drill in it. And get yourself a set of these micro box drills, but be very careful. There's a lot of imitations of these. I bought a set in a dark blue box which had like a titanium coating, and if you actually took them out and measured them, you had like 4 at 0.5, 4 at 0.7, 4 at 1 mil. Absolute garbage, and they were blunt and didn't cut at all. So yeah, so moving on to consumables now. Started off looking at glues. Your plastic cements, this is the go-to. Tamiya extra thin, absolutely brilliant. Bit smelly, but awesome. And I'll give you a tip: buy 2 bottles. Pour part of one bottle into the other bottle to fill it up. Because the problem is when it comes and it's filled up to here, when you take the brush out, the whole thing is absolutely soaking wet in glue and you'll drip glue on your model. So I tend to keep them fairly low like this one is, and then it's difficult to show you, but you can see there's not a lot in there, and that way when you take the brush out, you've only got glue on the end of the brush and you haven't got it all dripping off the shaft here, which you get when it's full. So yeah, worth remembering that one. You can also get this one, which is the Gun Sango equivalent, Mr. Hobby Cement X. S, sorry, there's also a deluxe version, and I should have said there's also a Tamiya extra thin quick drying, and I think the Mr. Cement X with the black label is also a quick drying. So yeah, you can also get these. They're orange or white, I think it's the same stuff. It's a very, very thick glue, as you can see there. It's all right, but I prefer this one. The contactor comes in a bottle. It's a stupid shaped bottle. I mean, how easy is that to knock over? Well done, really good design. But the glue is great. The brush is a bit big, but the glue is really great. What I find with this one is, if you use it as you're supposed to and you brush it on the parts before you put them together, like you know, a pair of tailplane halves or something, this is sort of dry before you get them together, whereas this one tends to stay wet a lot longer and it's a bit thinner. There's another glue on the market called Plastic Weld, EMA Plastic Weld. This stuff is incredible. But again, it comes in a fairly tall, narrow bottle, so I decant mine into an old Tamiya extra thin bottle. Believe it or not, this I think is probably the best glue on the market, especially if you're using styrene. If you're using the styrene sheet like Plastruct and everything, I think this glue is actually made by or made for Plastruct. It glues that stuff amazingly. It dries really, really fast. It's really, really strong. It's a bit smelly, but you know, they all are. I recommend this hand over fist over anything, but then saying that, it is very hot. So if you're working with like soft plastic like AMT or the Airfix kits, use this. And if you can't find this, use this. If you can't get any others, use this. If you're new to the hobby, use this. If you're experienced, use this. This stuff is amazing. And if you can't find that, use that. Super glue. I tend to like Vital Bond. A lot of people swear by other makes. I find Vital Bond lasts longest in the bottle. It doesn't tend to go off. The top screws off, and I don't know if you can see it down in there, but there's a metal pin in there, so the nozzle never gets blocked. So every time you want to use it, it's always ready for use. You're not there trying to clear the bloody top, which certain other makes, not mentioning that, you're forever trying to clear the nozzle out on the end. This stuff, they do a thin, I think they do a super thin, medium, and the way they do it is on the front of the bottle. It says like a 20-second cure is this one, and the thinner it is, the faster it's got a cling, the faster the cure. There's this one here which is made by Expo. I've had a couple of these now, and every time I use it, the top splits. I don't know why. I think it's the same bloody bottle, but for some reason this one, the top splits and this one doesn't. What I am going to do, next time I've got an empty bottle of extra thin, I'm going to try putting this in an extra thin bottle and see what happens. Never done that before. And while you're at it, piece of advice, top off a Pringles tube, get this, put a drop of CA on there. In fact, I'll show you. Just put a drop of CA on there, one little drop like that. Yeah, and then you can use your toothpick or whatever it is you use to apply your CA, and you can put that out of the way. You can put it wherever you want it, and once that goes off, once it goes hard, you can just peel it off. It just flakes off, and then you can reuse it. See, that just comes off. It doesn't affect it at all. So that's my advice to you there. And also, like a lot of people, like a lot of the modelers on videos, they tend to use a piece of masking tape down here, and then you put your arm in it, or you screw your arm, or you put your model down in it. This is much better. And then when you finish doing your CA application, you can put it to one side, and then if you want to use CA again in a minute, just bring it back over and use it. So I find that the best. So there you go. I've gone through all the tools and everything. Oh, cutting mats. This is from Aldi. This cutting mat was about £2.99. It's A3, and the green one underneath you get from all sorts of hobby shops. They're basically the same thing. This one, I don't know, it's cheap and cheerful. It doesn't tend to self-heal as well as the more expensive ones, but I like using it on camera because it's bright blue and most stuff shows up well on it. So yeah, there you go. So that's part one of this video, or is it? Yeah, we'll call that part one. So I've shown you that I haven't actually cheated on the kit. I've shown you the tools I use, and then the next video is going to be me actually starting the kit. So, and it's today, it's Thursday the 11th of October, and I'm going to start the kit right now.